Good evening and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory, and if you've never been here before, you're on Varietal Literature's YouTube channel, which is a sort of cozy corner for narrative on the internet. On Tuesdays, which is not tonight, we read old folklore and fairy tales, some of which was very recently translated, so I'd encourage you to check that out. That's called Fireside Fairy Tales. But tonight, what we do is not folklore or fairy tale related, it's just narrative related, which is we play games that require us to write stuff, and then we try to write a scene or a story. And tonight it's going to be more of a scene. It's going to be a plausibly deniable game where it basically is just Alien, the movie, but they kind of have to pretend it's not. Although they don't really pretend it's not. They just say it's inspired by. But it's clearly exactly that. And we're going to play that tonight, and I'll describe a little bit the rules. This one's a little more gamey than normal. So we'll see how people get along with that. But the goal here is to really write a scene of escaping a ship. So if that interests you, there will be timestamps down below. You can jump ahead and hear the results that we came up with, or you can, if you're here live, join us in the chat and say hello, because I see that we have, oh my, such a crowd. All my friends that I have missed: Witchery, Genera, GS, and Susie the Bear Girl. It is lovely to see you folks in chat, and it is lovely to get back to writing, because of course last week I had a fever of close to, in American, 104. Actually, it was over 104. Or in Canadian, 39.5 degrees Celsius. Bring this down just a bit. Oh, thank you, Witchery. Witchery said missed you last week. Missed you guys too. I thought I'd be okay. I thought I'd be like fine, and I just found myself sitting there thinking of things I could have written. Okay. Let's look at what this game is about. So this part of the show is called litgames. Litgames stands for literature games, but it's a whole bunch of things. The probably best catch-all is a solo tabletop RPG. In other words, pen and paper, you play a character in a setting, and then they use things like cards and dice and stuff to give us prompts to write, usually journal entries, but in this case it's going to be an actual scene. And the game that we're playing tonight is called It's in the Vents. And if you're super knowledgeable about sort of indie solo tabletop RPGs off itch.io, you might go, I've heard of that, but here's the thing. There are two solo tabletop RPGs called It's in the Vents, one of which is basically a hack of another type of game that involves writing letters. And I did consider playing that, and I may at some point play that. The thing about this is, this channel on the whole, I do sort of folklore, folk horror, that kind of stuff in this time of the month, because that is a style that I really like. But if I'm being honest, when it comes to horror films, Alien is probably my favorite. I really like the series, although it definitely has some serious low points. So I really like this setting, I should say. So we'll see if the audience, which is normally a little more folky, gets along with it. Witchery says, I nearly messaged you on Mastodon to make sure you weren't dead. Well, that's so sweet of you, Witchery. I'll be sure to update people if I die. I don't know why I'm making that joke, but it made me laugh. Anyways, this is called It's in the Vents by Travis Brightfield, a solo survival horror RPG. It is a thing, I believe, called a card crawl, where you lay out cards in a grid that represents different rooms on the ship, and we're going to move between them, and as you flip them, the suit and number tell you what's in that room. So, I mean, I guess I could get into more description than that, but I don't know that I really need to. I think I'll just sort of show you I'll sort of show you how it looks, and then we'll kind of get into it, and I'll tell you how I'm making this a writing game, because truthfully, this isn't explicitly a writing game. I just think it'll work as one. This is a game where you take cards. I'm going to use digital cards and roll 20 as per usual when we do these card games. Maybe I should zoom that in a bit more. Oh, I meant to do so. I completely forgot. I was going to give us directionals. I know how I can do it though instead. The you take a token. In our case, we're going to actually use a token here. Whoops. I'm using my Roll20 setup for when I played Chariots of the Gods, which is from the Alien RPG, which is good fun if you like aliens. Otherwise, probably not worth your time. And we start with a counter of 8. So I'm going to put that here, and I will explain to you what the 8 means. 8 tracker. So, the gist of it is, in this pile, in this grid of cards, there is a black joker. The black joker represents a cat. Holmes, specifically. And our goal is to go into this grid of, which is various rooms on a spaceship where everyone has been killed by an alien and we're trying to get out. Find Holmes, and then get back to the red joker here. But every time we move, this tracker ticks down. When the tracker reaches 0, the alien catches up to us. The way that we can add to our tracker or things I can remove from our tracker are all prompts we'll get off the cards that we flip. We'll have some resources we need to handle. Basically, you're just trying to get to the cat and get back to the escape pod, just like well, not the end, I guess, the second to last sequence of Alien. I mean, spoiler alert if you've never seen it. There is what feels like a final sequence, and then there's one more. Witcher says, I'm going to be honest, I never watched Alien. I just know that everyone dies except for the smart woman and her cat. Yeah, Alien's not exactly, I think, what a person would expect. It is quite good as a sort of monster movie. I think at this point, pop culture has probably spoiled every surprise it could have. But what I will say is a bit unexpected is that it has a strong... I'm not saying it always succeeds at this, but it has at its core a surprisingly feminist message of every movie, which is the problems always begin by a bunch of self-important men who have their own goals, ignoring the wise woman, and everyone gets screwed for it. It's like the trope of the movies, with some exceptions, because there are some very bad, weird alien movies that you do not need to watch, unless you want to laugh. Okay. So, in other words, there's more mechanics going on here than usual, but the goal here is when we flip that card, we're going to write a little bit, like a paragraph or so, of how our run back through the ship is going. And I guess it's just me having a chance to do some atmospheric horror. So here's what I'm going to do. I meant to do this in a more standardized way, but I got a bit busy today. We're going to do it. We cannot move diagonal in this game. Oops. So if it's not clear what I'm doing, I'm tagging the 4 places we could go right now. I'll just retype this. And then we in chat can vote where to go. So I'm just doing it clockwise, the top being the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't travel diagonally. We can only go on the grid. And we're looking for the Black Joker. Now you might be saying, Rory, surely you know where the Black Joker is. You set this up. Because in the actual formal way you do the game, you take 22 cards. Well, 22 cards, and then you shove the Black Joker in. So 23. You shuffle them, and you put them out without looking, and so you don't know where it is. But I can't do that with this. So what I did was I had my partner put it somewhere. I don't actually know where the Black Joker is. The Red Joker we know because that's the escape pod, and that's where we start from. So, the top here is 1. The right-hand side is 2, the lower is 3, and the left-hand side is 4. So in chat, hell, right now, make a vote what direction you want to go. We'll watch everyone vote for a different one, and I'll just have to decide. So I'm calling this one Alien Covenant was a better movie than literally everyone but me who saw it would have you believe. And it's in the Vince playthrough. And there's a bit of an agenda going on in that title. We'll see if you can figure it out, you clever folks in chat channel. It's like this lonely hill I'm going to die on. That Alien Covenant is one of the best Alien movies. Susie the Bear Girl says, I feel like any solo RPG can be a writing game. I've even taken a full RPG, basic fantasy in my case, and used a Mythic GM emulator to make a writing game for myself. Oh, that's so fun. Good idea. Making a full RPG into a solo writing game is very sandboxing and open-ended, to be fair. I think it really just comes down to how your imagination works, right? Some people just get lost in that, but yeah, I agree with you. Oh yeah, Witchery says the main downside to using YouTube Live instead of Twitch is you can't spam polls at us like these games demand. Yeah, I have considered simulcasting to Twitch. I am a little concerned at the crowd I would attract on Twitch. Twitch has a bit more of a problem with trolling small people, whereas in YouTube you're just invisible, so it doesn't happen. Yeah. There's also, it would require me to move over a bunch of infrastructure, but it is a thing that's in the back of my head, because, I mean, obviously that's where live stuff really goes. The tabletop RPGs streams I see are nice. Well, maybe they're better, because I don't watch a lot of tabletop RPGs on Twitch. I tend to watch game streams, and, I mean, I'm a gamer, and I'll tell you, gamers can be real jerks. Okay. Let's get to our writing. The ship is this. I mean, we could pretend it's something else, but whatever. The Nostromo is a graveyard. Everyone, every crewmate, every crewman, crew person doesn't flow. Every member of the crew. Every member of the crew. That's true. Every member of the crew has been gutted by the beast sliding through the vents. Susie the Bear Girl says, yeah, I love having open-ended games and stories, but I also love having limitations too. Both are good in their own right. I do feel like creativity needs some limitations. You know, if you just leave it too wide open, you tend to get... I don't know. It tends not to be a puzzle, right? Like, the thing about writing that is enjoyable that I think isn't stated enough is that when you're writing a book, which it's a different form of writing than I do here, it's an endless puzzle. How do you sort in these... where are you going to place this, and how are you going to show that without violating this and whatever? And those kind of limits on your worlds and your characters and stuff are the puzzle that is fascinating to work out as a writer. How to articulate things and stuff. But if it's too broad, too open, I start to lose it. GS votes for crewmates. Okay. Every crewmate has been gutted by the beast sliding through its vents. Save for the one. That is breathless. That is fluctuating between panic and concern at the door of the escape pod. Good point. GS is gutted is an understatement. For those who don't know, a great deal of the alien mythos is that they incubate in other people. You are their womb. They sometimes eat you, but just as often are keep you alive to incubate things in you. Her name's Ellen Ripley, right? I'm not misremembering. They call her Ripley so much, I just realized that Ellen is weird to say. Ellen is... We're I guess basically what we're doing, and now that I think about it, is we're doing those like novelizations of a scene. Witchery says, anyways, if you ever do Twitch, I'll turn the trolls into newts for you. Well, thank you. Witchery says, also the body horror is why I haven't watched Aliens, to be honest. I don't mind hearing about it, but seeing it is different. If body horror isn't your thing, by the way, I would not read any of the horror stories I have on my website. There are stories on there that are not horror, but the ones that are horror from me are almost always body horror. Which isn't a deliberate thing, it's just sort of where I go. Like I have one about I was gonna say something and I realized it kind of spoils the story a bit. One about some gross things to do with skin. Let's put it that way. Save for one that is fluctuating between panic and concern at the door of an escape pod. Ellen is... Ellen is spattered in blood, smeared by grease, sweating by the pilot light, pilot light of her... Oh, they probably have a cool name for them, and I don't know what they call. They're just flamethrowers, really. Of her flamethrower. And just staring down the industrial hallway where the self-destruct warning lights are dimming, then brightening? No. The computer states 6 minutes to self-destruct of the Nostromo. The klaxon... I'm a little off the page, aren't I? The klaxon blast wails again and again. A vent somewhere down the hall to A block clicks and groans under the weight of something large. Holmes. Where are you? The one thing I probably won't do is have as much swearing as Ellen Ripley does. Holly's House says, sorry I'm late, what's happening? The movie Alien, we're going to save a cat and possibly be bursted by an alien. I should say that the way the game is written, we may also get a cat killed. I don't know that I'm really going to do that. I think I might just create fan fiction where the cat becomes friends with a xenomorph instead. And possibly be bursted by an alien. That is accurate. Yeah, we're basically playing a game where we move... we have a grid of cards. We'll take a vote on where to go. The vote has already happened for this one. We're going to go to 2. And this represents a ship, and we need to search through this ship as it is starting to self-destruct while being stalked by an alien. And there's some mechanics that make that more possible. Ellen says to herself with an exhausted rasp. She swipes the salty, how about the brine of sweat from her eyes, considers just running, getting in the pod, and leaving the cat to its fate. Alan checks the fuel on her flamethrower. No, I don't need to say that. Here's a classic example of overwriting. The flamethrower's fuel meter ticks to 0. And the pilot light flickers out. Yeah, that's a fair point. Witchery says, see, I never watched it, but this movie was spoiled for me well before I was old enough to watch it. It was too big, like being born after Star Wars aired, knowing about Vader. That is true. It is a pretty intense movie as well. Susie the Bear Girl said, cats are evil and mischievous, though. And I could see cats and xenomorphs getting along. Yep. Yeah, cats... Like... The thing that occurs to me is, like, we laugh about cats attacking our ankles and feet all the time, but, like, if they were big enough to do any serious harm, there's no reason to believe they wouldn't. They're just too small. We got small lions, but still lions. Flamethrower's fuel meter ticks to 0 and the pilot light flickers out. Holmes. She says, and steps out of the escape pod into the misty amber hallways of the Nostromo. Yeah, GS makes a good point. The whole thing about Alien is its suspense and its style. It's very stylish. If there's one thing, you know, I think that's hard to challenge, even if people didn't like it, is that it really defined its own style. Witchery says, I would pet a regular lion. It would be peak white woman of me, but I'd do it. Okay, let's see what 2 is. Flip card. It is an ace of spades, which is a song. Ace of spades. Okay, spades. Oh, no. Spades are not good. Okay, so playing the game. Each card represents a room on the ship. You can move between adjacent rooms, never diagonally, but it will create noise, and that brings the alien closer to your location. When your distance reaches 0, the alien has found you. You might be able to scare it off, if only briefly, by using your plasma torch. The problem, you don't have any fuel for it. We find fuel as we go, hopefully. Maybe you'll find some on the ship, otherwise your life, the game, ends when the alien finds you. Whenever you move between rooms, you subtract -1 distance, and when you move into an unexplored room, you flip the card over and do the following based on the card. So the first thing, before we forget, is our distance, because we move between rooms, is now 7. In other words, the creature's getting closer. And it is spades. This connecting module is unstable. You can fix it with your plasma torch that's the name, if you have any fuel. Otherwise, the ship is going to lock it off and jettison it. If you spend 1 fuel, the corridor stabilizes and remains on the board. If you do not, the corridor is jettisoned, remove it from the board, and immediately move on to an adjacent card. You will still lose 1 distance from movement. You won't be able to come back this way. Okay. We're here. We have no fuel because it's the beginning of the game, which means we are going to have to move again. But our options are a little more limited. We have 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to have to write that scene. So I'm going to work on writing that scene. You guys think about which room you want to go to, because this room is about to split off. Ellen sprints down the hall. Her footsteps rattle the floor grates, but the sirens, she hopes, but the sirens, she hopes, do not betray her to the creature. She opens the passage where she heard some rattling. Please be the cat and not the creature, she whispers, grits her teeth, and points her plasma torch into the room, despite it having nothing for fuel. The door whips shut behind her. Shut behind her. But immediately there is no creature, fuzzy or deadly, but the room is cambering off at an angle, and the air is thin. Ripley's sweat freezes to her arm, and she gasps against the encroaching vacuum of space. This module is tearing off the ship. Something damaged it. And the computer... Oh, how did they spell it? Its mother is the name of the computer, but how do they spell it? I'm looking it up, because it's going to come up more than once. Alien... Yes, I'm very happy that AdBlock has been updated. Leave me alone. Alien computer name. It's going to give me something weird, I'm sure. Cambering might not be the right... It's at a camber is probably the word I'm looking for. It's at an angle. The MUTHUR 6000. Okay, there we go. I don't need to put the 6000 in. Is running a standard ejection protocol. Her hands gripped to a rail. Slipping against the sucking atmosphere. Bleeding through the... Get lost in the sentence. Through the fractures of this module's hull. Ripley punches the emergency release for the exit and rolls out before being ejected with the faulty module. The door sealed behind her. She mutters, "Guess I'm taking the long way back." Okay, let's see what that other one is. Everyone said 1, so let's go with 1. Okay, so that is a... Oh, wait, what am I doing? Oh, yeah, that's right. This is gone. This is ejected into space. Okay, so it's a 6 of hearts. You'll notice that the numbers only matter sometimes. Like diamonds it matters, but it doesn't matter on spades and hearts. Or really clubs either, I don't think either. Hearts, you slip into a hiding spot and wait for the alien to pick up another trail before continuing. Okay, perfect. These are the scenes that make or break these kinds of things. The close calls. But we gain +2 distance from a heart. So. Also, for those in chat who are watching, 1, 2, and 4 will be our next vote once I finish this little passage. Witchery says, "We are in trouble, I say, as if we aren't already on a ship full of the dead and the alien who made them that way." Yes, but we are with Ripley, who is awesome and super deadly. She's not even super deadly. Ripley is just will not give up. Like, that's like her core mechanic. She actually, I would say that her core thing is she's got a sort of fierce nurturing quality. Hollyso says, I can see a cat pushing their owner in front of a xenomorph to save themselves. They wouldn't even put the effort in. Okay. All right. By the way, since this doesn't give descriptions of rooms, it just gives descriptions of sort of events in a room. There are some points where we'll find rooms that are a little more described, I guess. But for the most part, by the way, if you guys want to suggest what room I'm in, whether it's like a cafeteria, a barracks, an office, a tool room, or something like that, you can throw those recommendations in too, and I can write around those because the settings are variable. Ellen pulls herself. Ellen catches her breath for a moment. Her sweat thawing and dripping off her nose. Into the piping under the floor racks. GS says cafeteria. When the ringing in her ears few deep breaths. Bring the feeling back in her hands and legs. The ringing in her ears recedes, and she readies to leap back to her feet when the clatter of standard issue. Oh, what company was she with? Hey, here's a fun fact that maybe everybody knows, but I'm surprised how many people don't know. Blade Runner and Alien take place in the same continuity in the same universe. Blade Runner predates Alien by about 50 years, I think. Maybe a bit more. I think the original Blade Runner is predated by like 100 years, but like Blade Runner timeline that they've described so far takes you up to just at the tail end of when the earliest current Alien stuff starts to pick up. But they are of the same world, in case you didn't know. They're directed by the same person, so it's not surprising. They do make some cross-references as well, I believe. I think the biggest one is Wayland. Thank you, Susie. Wayland Yutani. Standard issue. Wayland Yutani. Cafeteria trays being tossed to the floor. Ellen freezes. Her temptation to call out, to hope that someone was still alive, pushed away by her fear. By the wisdom of her fear. She knows they are all dead. She watched and listened to their cries. No. Don't call out. Ellen, she thinks to herself. Susie says, I also love Blade Runner and I didn't know they were in the same universe. Yeah, I only found out probably a few years back. Somebody was making reference to Blade Runner 2049, which is a movie that should not have worked. When they said they were making a Blade Runner sequel, I was like, well, that's a terrible idea. And then I went and saw it in the theater one night. I was like, well, I guess I'll give it a shot because I really like the original. And it was fantastic. I realize this is sort of heresy, but I feel like it might, frankly, almost be better than the original. I mean, it's got less vision than the original because it's a takeoff of it, but it was just so shockingly good. If you haven't watched Blade Runner 2049, you guys absolutely should. I hope I'm getting that year right. Gia says, I really love Blade Runner. I do too. I like that it's a show that is comfortable with taking its time. It's a bit of a rare thing. Not even just nowadays, just in general, it's a rare thing. It was rare at the time. She watched and listened to their cries. She sucked in one last breath and held as still as cold steel under one of the cafeteria benches. Also, the final cut, which is not the director's cut. It's not like the 7 other cuts they've had. The final cut, the director's cut, by the way, isn't even a director's cut. It's just a turn of phrase they threw at it. The final cut is the only one that explains the unicorn origami. It leaves the key scene in that is meant to balance to, which blows my mind. The step was heavy. And echoed like metal on metal. God knows what made the shell of that beast. But it was as sturdy as a fighter ship hull. The alert lights grew bright, and for a brief moment stretched high on the wall above where Ripley lay. The long, terrible silhouette of the beast was revealed. The amber warning lights dimmed back down, and in the pitch black of the cafeteria, that is not even close to how you spell cafeteria. What am I doing? And in the pitch black of the cafeteria, she could hear the rattlesnake click of its long breath. Another groaning step in her direction. A huff, like a sniff. Ripley eyes for the doors. The creature was fast. But she wouldn't give up easy. Carefully, she bit the rubber of her boots against the edge of a grate, ready to push off out from under the bench and sprint. How long did I say they had for self-destruct? 6 minutes, okay. Five minutes and 30 seconds to total destruction of the Nostromo. Mother bellows. Actually, I have an idea. But it cuts short with a terrible crash. And crunch as the beast tears the speaker from its bracing. The lights grow again in their amber haze and draw the shadow taller on the wall. Another groaning of the vents, or not the vents, of the grates under its profound weight as it huffs like a sniff in Ripley's direction. Ripley feels the fight of a breath. Feels the losing fight of holding her breath She grits her teeth hard and focuses on still silence. With a heavy clunk on the table above her, she finally hears the beast slip back up into the roof vents and crawl away to the next module. All right, what did we vote for on that one? 1, 2, and 4. What was the votes, folks? That slant rhymed a bit. I'm a poet now. One, 2, or 4. I will say that if you guys want to play this game, there's a second vote for 4. Good enough for me. I do just to slither away. I do recommend it. It works as a game even if you don't want to write. It's a tense little game. I think actually we were meant to go down 2 because we went into here and then we went into the next one, and that is 2 movement. So I think we're down to 6. But then in that room we got +2. That was what we got, so we're back up to 8. The game doesn't take too long either if you're not stopping and writing like this, you know. My God, have we written a lot? No, we've gone too far is what's happened. There we go. We, like you guys, control this. Okay, 4. 4 is a 9 of spades. So I think we got a spade before, which means it's another unstable module. We still have no fuel. Oh yeah, the court cards. Have we had a court card? I forgot about that. We haven't. So court cards are like Jack, Queen, Kings. And that's where you find fuel cells. Okay. Well, I won't spend a bunch of time describing this because this one... Witchery says going sideways is bad. Noted. Because we already did. And even if I was writing this as a book, I would just be sort of gesturing towards it in the writing to say that it happened again. Taking the shortest path when the vents could be heard creaking no more. This is a badly constructed sentence. Ellen wipes a tear from her trembling face and sprints into the next room. What kind of room is it, by the way, folks? As always, let me know what you think it should be. Sprints into the next room. Sprints to the bulkhead? Is that the name of it? To the bulkhead. Sprints to open the door. The bulkhead? I think the bulkhead's a more substantial thing than a door, but whatever. The sprints to open the bulkhead for the next room. Do they have armories or a lab? They have everything you would need to live. They are colony ships, effectively, that were repurposed for research. In the case of the Nostromo, it's an industrial ship. They're basically kind of like miners. So it has everything you would need to live, including soldiery, weapons, tools, showers, all of it. They are long-term ships. They go away for years at a time. Sprints to open the bulkhead for the next room. The armory. Let's do that one. That's a good one. Wait. The door cracks open, and a gasp reveals it is failing. It is another failing module. Ripley nearly gets sucked through the opening. Sucked through the break. But grabs a bolted weapons rack just in time. With gasping breath and dimming vision, Ellen monkey bars parallel to the floor across the locked rifles of the armory. I swear to God, she says, sealing the module behind her. I swear to God, she says, sealing the module behind me, or if the next room is like that, I'm gonna but her short breath fails her before she can finish her hollow threat. Okay. So that means she moves to here. But because it's another broken room, we have two choices we can go. 1 or 4, folks. 1 or 4. This will probably be the last one we get to do. And I will knock us down 2 because we will have crossed 2 rooms. So we've lost all the gains we had in the last room. One. Everybody is paranoid of going sideways now. Okay. Well, it's not hearts, which gets us back stuff. But it's not spades, so that's good. It is a queen, which means it has fuel in it. We'll talk about how that works in a minute. But it's clubs, and we've never done clubs, which is good. You create a loud, unfortunate noise. The alien draws nearer, lose -1 distance. So what kind of room are we going to make loud, unfortunate noise in? So basically what that means is we will go down 2 more. Because 1 to move into the room. Oh no, I already took the 1 off moving into the room. But 1 more from this. GS says, if you ever feel like giving up, just turn on Alien. She'll inspire you not to quit. Yeah, I think the most admirable thing into is her character just never considers surrender in any way. She never considers giving up life. Just never. Witchery says, slime into a lab, break a bunch of beakers or something. That's a cool idea because maybe we set off a chemical reaction. Susie the Bear Girl says pantry or a storeroom. That also works. We could knock over shelves and stuff. Queen means we have found fuel. When you find a fuel cell, unfortunately, it's being used to power the room. If you remove it, take the card, adding 1 fuel to your inventory, the room is permanently locked down. Immediately move onto an adjacent room. You still lose another -1 distance. You won't be able to come back this way. If you do not, the room remains open, but you continue on. Are we taking the fuel cell? The fuel cell has 2 uses, depending on how you want to use it. If you get caught by the alien, you use it, and it resets your counter a bit. It scares it off a little bit. If the other thing it's useful, when we get to those decaying broken rooms, we can use a fuel cell to save them. GS says, I quit mentally so many times in that movie, I gained character by the end. Do we want to take the fuel cell, folks? Not that it probably matters, but we are going to jump to the next room. Yeah, okay. I assume that would be the vote. Let's add a fuel cell. Okay, the votes are definitely to take it. Okay. Ripley. Come on. There we go. Ripley slams the door shut and spins to see that this room finally is a functional one. She sprints. I need a better word. I've used sprint too many times. She dashes over. It's the lab. One of the more reinforced modules on the ship. Because it is meant to keep things like that which hunted her contained. Ripley sprints over, or did it again, dashes over the lab counter and knocks some still bubbling collection beakers to the floor. As they shatter behind her, to her surprise, they begin to pop. And crackle, bursting into flames. And oily smoke. Eyes wide. Loud as gunshots. And it has loud enough to beckon the creature. Ripley grabs the fuel cell for the room, shutting off its lights and leaving it to fill with toxic smoke. Her plasma torch ticks up, though. And it is the first time since she started this search that she feels fortune may be on her side. Okay, and I'm desperately curious. So one more time. We have to go to 4 or 3. Let's close it. I don't know if I'll write it or not. We'll see what comes up. If it's too complicated, maybe not. But 4 or 3, let's see where we wound up. We ejected 2 modules. Finally found a fuel cell. Or we could go, you see, this is the problem. Now you have to go sideways. I know the chat no longer trusts sideways, and that's fair. Oh, sorry, not 4 or 3. Well, I won't change it now. It should be 2 or 4, but whatever. But I am curious what room we go into. Okay, 3. Oh, it's an 8 of hearts, which means we would have gained back 2 more. Ellen shouts and pushes forward. And we'll end our fanfic there. I mean, I guess we're all curious where Holmes is, right? Like, surely I'm gonna have to flip these cards and see where Holmes is. Okay. Can I do this as a bunch? Nope. Nothing on that side, okay. Oh, it was this way, okay. Well, we were on the way towards it. There's our little kitty. Oh well. Okay. Because we were right there. This one was gone. Which means, where were we at? This would have given us back 2. We would have lost 1 and gained 1, basically. So that would have been... You lose 1, but it's plus 2, so it would have put us back up to 6. And then we would have lost 1 going to the cat, which is back down to 5. And then we would have had... Oh, the path back would suck, though. Because we would have to go 1, 2, 1 disaster room, 3, 4, 5 to get back. So we definitely would have encountered the alien on the way, but we would have gotten some fuel on the way as well. Cool. Okay. Well, that means it's time to read what we came up with, chat. Thank you so much for your help on this. It was fun. It was nice to have a little more game structure, visual game structure that people could participate in. Some of these are so abstract. It's like it's hard to invite you guys in, which is what I like to do. Okay. If you're jumping to this part of the show, it's because you just want to know what the results were. And I called this stream Covenant was a better movie than literally everyone but me who saw it would have you believe. It's in the Vents playthrough. And just to clarify, we're playing It's in the Vents, but there are 2 of that name on itch.io. This is the one we're playing, which is what's called a card crawl. And that means that we didn't end up flipping all the cards. We were just curious. But that means we had to move from card to card and flip them over. And based on the ones we flipped, we got prompts. And the tracker goes down as we moved, which meant the alien was getting closer. Because, of course, this is basically an alien game. So what we're going to follow is a sort of real-time run of Ellen Ripley through the Nostromo to try and find the cat Holmes. And you'll see how far we got. Whether anybody lived. The Nostromo is a graveyard. Every crewmate has been gutted by the beast sliding through its vents, save for the one that is fluctuating between panic and concern at the door of an escape pod. Her name is Ellen. She is spattered in blood, smeared by grease, sweating by the fading pilot light of her flamethrower plasma torch, I couldn't think of the name, and is staring down the industrial hallway where the amber self-destruct warning lights are dimming then shining bright. The computer states 6 minutes to self-destruct of the Nostromo. The klaxon blast wails again and again. A vent somewhere down the hall to A block clicks and groans under the weight of something larger. Holmes, where are you? Ellen says to herself with an exhausted rasp. She swipes the brine of sweat from her eyes and considers just running, getting in the pod and leaving the cat to its fate. The plasma torch's fuel meter ticks down to 0 and the pilot light flickers out. Damn it, Holmes, she says, stepping back out of the escape pod into the misty amber hallways of the Nostromo and begins to search. Ellen sprints down the hall. Her footsteps rattle the floor grates, but the sirens, she hopes, do not betray her to the creatures, cover her sound from the creature, however you want to think of that. She opens the passage where she heard some rattling. Please be the cat and not the creature, she whispers and grits her teeth and points her plasma torch into the room despite it having nothing for fuel. A comfort at best. The door whips shut behind her. There is no creature, fuzzy or deadly, but the room is cambering off at an angle and the air is thinning. Ripley's sweat freezes to her arm and she gasps against the encroaching vacuum of space. This module is tearing off the ship. Something damaged it, and Mother, the ship computer, is running a standard ejection protocol. Her hands grip to a rail, slipping against the sucking atmosphere, bleeding through the fractures of this module's hull. Ripley punches the emergency release for the exit door and rolls out before being ejected with the faulty module. The door seals behind her and she mutters, "Guess I'm taking the long way back." Ellen catches her breath on the floor for a moment. Her sweat thaws and drips off her nose down into the piping under the floor racks. A few deep breaths bring the feeling back in her hands and legs. The ringing in her ear recedes, and she readies to leap back to her feet when the clatter of a standard issue Wayland Yutani cafeteria trays being tossed. When she hears the clatter of a stack of standard issue Wayland Yutani cafeteria trays being tossed to the floor, Ellen freezes. Her temptation to call to it, to hope that someone was still alive, is pushed away by the wisdom of her fear. She knows they're all dead. She watched and listened to their cries as the beast tore them apart. No, don't call out, Ellen, she thought. She sucked in one last breath and held as still as cold steel under one of the cafeteria benches. The step in the kitchen was heavy and echoed like metal on metal. God knows what made the shell of that beast, but it was as sturdy as a fighter ship's hull. The alert lights grew bright, and for a brief moment, stretched high on the wall above where Ripley lay, was the long, terrible silhouette of the beast. The amber warning lights dimmed back down, and in the pitch black of the cafeteria, she could hear the rattlesnake click of its long breath. Another groaning step in her direction, a huff like a sniff. Ripley eyes for the doors. The creature was fast, but she wouldn't give up easy. Carefully, she braces the rubber of her boots against the edge of a grate, ready to push out from under the bench and sprint. 5 minutes and 30 seconds to total destruction of the Nostromo, Mother bellows, but it cuts short with a terrible crash and crunch as the beast tears the speaker from its bracing. The lights grow bright again in their amber haze, and draw the shadow of the beast taller upon the wall. Another groaning of the grates under its profound weight as it huffs in Ripley's direction. Ripley feels the losing fight of holding her breath. She grits her teeth hard and focuses on being still and silent. Some messy prose today. With a heavy clunk on the table above her, she finally hears the beast slip back up into the roof vents and slither away to the next module. Taking the shortest path, when the vents could be heard creaking no more, Ellen wipes a tear from her trembling face and sprints to open the bulkhead for the next room. The door slides open, and a gasp reveals it is another failing module. Ripley nearly gets sucked through the break in its hull, but grabs a bolted weapon rack just in time. With a gasping breath and dimming vision, Ellen monkey bars parallel to the floor across, using the locked rifles of the armory as her bars. "I swear to God," she says as she seals the module behind her, "if the next room is like that, I'm gonna..." But her short breath fails her before she can finish her hollow threat. Ripley slams the door shut and spins to see that this room, finally, is a functional one. One of the more reinforced... it's the lab, one of the more reinforced modules on the ship, because it is meant to keep things like that which hunted her contained. A lot of good that did. Ripley dashes over the lab counter and knocks some still bubbling collection of beakers to the floor. As they shatter to behind her, to her surprise, whatever was in them begins to mix, pop, crackle, and burst into flames and oily smoke. Loud as gunshots, loud enough to beckon the creature. Ripley grabs the fuel cell for the room, shutting off its light and leaving it to fill with toxic smoke. As she connects the power source to her plasma torch, it does tick up the meter. It is the first time since she started this search that she feels fortune maybe on her side. "Holmes!" Ellen shouts and pushes forward. It is tough to write action in stories, I will say, because as you can see, it gets fiddly in its descriptions at times. It is a thing that I've been working on for the last couple of years, actually. Still feel like I'm not really nailing it. But you know, at the end of the day, the strength of writing is introspection, so trying to focus a little more on fear. So like if I went back and I wrote that again, I would focus a bit more on, you know, feeling your heartbeat and things like that. For those who are curious about what I think about when I write. All right, well, this is our second to last Halo stream for the Varietal show. I think I have to take a closer look at the mechanics for it, but I think next week we might do one called Scarebnb, where we're a ghost in an Airbnb. It sounds fun, but I have to double check the mechanics on it, see if it works for this. And if you didn't see it, on Tuesday, Fireside Fairy Tales, we did a collection of versions of vampires you've probably never heard of, mostly from Germany. And then because folklore is sort of wishy-washy about the borders on these creatures, on the, like where their definition ends, it sort of slips into zombie territory as well. It's not the romantic Eastern European vampires, is what I'm trying to say. And that video has been pretty well received. It also includes a banger of a story in the latter half about Draug, which is a Norwegian sort of zombie. Witchery said, fun little game. Glad to have you back. Glad to see you, Witchery. Glad to see you, Susie the Bear Girl. Glad to see you, Janera. And of course, glad to see you, GS. Thank you for helping me find a kitty cat and self-destructing ship. I do encourage you guys to try the game if you like the atmosphere. I think actually one thing I thought of, if you're not super big on the space setting, it's not that hard of a game to hack. The one that I thought would work, if you know it, is there's a video game out right now called Amnesia the Bunker, I think, and it's basically aliens but set in World War One. By the way, if you guys don't know, if you are Alien fans, you should know this then. There's a 10-year-old game that still looks pretty modern called Alien Isolation that was brilliant, while also being one of the most stressful game experiences of your life, where you're basically a Ripley type. I won't say much about who the character is. It's not Ripley, though. Being hunted by one of the most effective game AIs ever made. And I've never been able to play it personally. I couldn't handle it. I just watch people play it, and even that is too stressful. It's brilliant, though. If you can watch a playthrough of it, they are excellent. Well, I'm glad you folks are here, and I'll try not to get more fevers. And of course, I love you all just the way you are. To steal a line from Mr. Rogers, and I did miss you guys. Susie the Bear Girl says, yeah, it seems like a cool game. Also, I really need to play Amnesia the Bunker. I was watching someone play it, and I concluded very quickly that I will watch playthroughs of it, but I couldn't play it. I couldn't handle it. But of course, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of my ship. You probably want to anyways. It's full of aliens. Have a good week, guys. I'll be back next week.